You are tuning in to Access Live, a show about raising awareness, what's going on in the community, and to address the issues that impact youth and their families that have serious emotional and behavioral challenges. We are located at the Brookins Building at 1776 East Washington in Urbana, Illinois, and at the downtown location at 202 West Park Street.
And good afternoon, our wonderful friends and family. It is again a glorious Wednesday afternoon, this Wednesday, March 19th of 2014. And do we have a show for you today? But you're going to have to hold on a minute because we want to do a little announcement for an upcoming show, so we don't make somebody stay in the studio all day waiting for us. There has been some organizing going on in our community, and if I said the Big Eight, would you know who I meant? Yes, the Black Greek letter organizations have all come together to do 40 days of nonviolence?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about that. Where'd that come from?
It started, my name is James Fielder. I'm president of the Black Greek Alumni Association. The initiative started actually down in East St. Louis with the Divine Nine there and the National Panhandle there. The mayor of the city of East St. Louis happens to be a member of Kappa Alpha Psi.
Just so happens.
I have to throw that shout out. And they organized this last year, and then we're starting to try to spread it throughout the region.
Yes.
They found out that during the 40 days of nonviolence, during that time frame, crime actually dropped in the city of East St. Louis.
So there's some promising research, so to speak.
Right, there's some
Wonderful.
statistics to show.
Beautiful.
And so we decided to bring it to Champaign, and we've been doing events throughout the past 2 weeks, and we're going to culminate the events April 9th at Mount Olive Missionary
And so
Baptist
it's
Church.
40 total days?
40 total days.
Okay, so everybody who's thinking about hitting somebody, you're going to have to hold back at least for a few more weeks.
Right.
And maybe in that time period we'll convince you, or you will become convinced that if you could wait that long, you could decide not to do it at all, right?
That's the motive behind it.
Absolutely.
We're giving kids alternatives.
And it's like a fast. Right? Sister Net, we do negativity fast,
right,
like during Lenten season.
And it happens to be around
yes,
Lent that
exactly.
this is going on.
So this is another opportunity for us to be still long enough to get back in touch with our own humanity and sort of reboot and say we're going to be in the world a different way.
Right.
So I'm so glad you came by to tell us about that. In the coming weeks, audience, listen out because we're going to be talking more about it. So I will be in touch with you, kind sir, Mr. K.A. Psi.
Wearing it all.
Wearing it all. We got the red going on. And hopefully you're going to be able to bring a brother or sister with you, and we'll have a good conversation. So y'all listen out. Okay, thank you very much, sir. Now, everyone, da-da-da-da, what everyone has been waiting for. We are going to today discuss what Women's History Month means to us. So we know the month of March is Women's History Month, but of course we have to put our own spin on it as a show that's dedicated to the mental health and healing of the African American community, and a part of the healing of our community has to do with the importance of bringing leadership to bear on how we want to be in the world. And so today we're going to be talking with a number of Black women who have been active and continue to be active in bringing leadership in their homes, as well as bringing leadership and insight on the ground where we live in the public domain. So I am very pleased to welcome Ms. Carol Ammons, who is an alderwoman for the city of Urbana, and as of last night is the Democratic candidate for the 103rd State Representative District. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. And I'd also like next to introduce Sister Mariam Al-Rahim. Many of you know Miss Mariam, and she is here in her capacity as a long-distance runner. We know we don't get this done overnight. So Miss Mariam is a long-distance runner and functions as the coordinator for SisterNet's public engagement efforts. And then finally, we are delighted to have in the studio Miss Phyllis Clark. Phyllis, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be here.
Wonderful. Phyllis has been serving as the city clerk for the city of Urbana, and you're also the board staff for Cunningham Township.
Yes.
Yes, very good. So we've got a lot of experience here in the room today, some of it good, some of it not, but the thing that's animating all of us today is the possibility that we are making history. And so this show is really about who makes history, who gets to write it down and decide what in fact it was, and what does it take to make history. Can regular people make history? So we've got some history mind-bending conversations to have today, to talk about it in ways you may not have considered it before. I do want to say right now that while we have registered Democrats and leaders who have won positions in the Democratic Party, WBCP nor the Access Initiative endorse parties or individuals. But it's important to have these individuals here because they see themselves serving not just the broader community, but as also representative and being role models for the broader African American community. And that's who this show is reaching out to, and that's who reaches back to us through texts and emails and the phone. So write this number down right now because we want you to join the conversation. 359-9227. And in case anyone is concerned, if a counterpart from the Republican Party or an independent party has concerns and would like to get some airtime, I'm sure Mr. Purtle can arrange that for you. So let that be known. But women, welcome. Everybody's excited.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
Wonderful. Now, Sister Phyllis.
Yes, ma'am.
Talk to us about what brought you to this. What made you think you could run for office or do anything? Where'd that come from? And then tell us what it is you do.
Okay. When I decided to run for office in 1993.
Woo!
Okay.
Some of y'all was barely born, I think.
I did so for the very purpose of showing my children that there are things that you can do whether you win or lose to say that you have made the effort to run the race.
Yes.
And that's exactly why I did it the very first time, not realizing that I was actually going to win. But when I did, it was a brand new feeling. I was no longer working for somebody else.
Yeah.
I was actually working for the people of the city of
And
Urbana.
you were a regular woman.
A regular
right?
woman.
You were regular.
Regular.
And that's what this show is about. What is it that regular women make happen? And how do regular women make history? So, interestingly, you ran in 93. I do remember that.
Yes.
I do remember you winning. Do you have any stories you want to share about how that may have changed your life or how you made that happen? I know with you, Sister Carol, you had to do a lot of adjusting. There had to be a lot of support and coordination for you to run your campaign. And I imagine that's the case with anyone.
Yes, it is.
Even outside of electoral politics. Sometimes we have campaigns over issues, right?
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
just about running for office. So, what did you have to do differently? Or did you have to do anything differently? You bring leadership to your home and family. You may have been active in your church or other organizations. How did you make room to run?
Well, the thing that I had to do was to make sure that I was out there doing the things that I am supposed, representing myself, representing my family, and representing womanhood as the way it's supposed to be. So, you know, you be careful of the things that you say because it comes back to get you.
Yes, it does.
Okay? So if you go out there and you have a purpose, like for my purpose at that point was to let my kids know that it can be done if you really want it to be done. You have to understand that people watch everything it is
That's
that you
right.
do, and so you have to live for what it is that you believe in. And I'm strong in my church, and I believe in right
Where's your
and
church
wrong.
home?
Mount Olive
You can
Baptist
say
Church.
it. You can say it. And Mount Olive is a polling site, correct?
Yes, it
yes, so
is.
there were many people at Mount Olive yesterday voting.
Oh, yes, it was. Yes, it was. And Carol, you won by a landslide. Oh, yeah.
So,
oh, yeah.
I really want to go a little deeper into
All right.
something that I heard you say. And Miss Mariam, why don't you offer our first response? So it's not just about politics as usual. I think I heard you say that it's not just winning, it's actually how you run the race.
Absolutely.
That you tell people who you are by how you behave,
Yes.
either running for an elected office or trying to make any kind of change happen in the community. We know you not just by what you say, but what you do. And that has been a difficult thing that I know all three of you have experienced in this most recent electoral cycle. That you can't decide to sling mud and other things and expect to come out clean. And if you're getting mud slung at you, is the proper response to get angry and throw some handfuls back, or is the process of launching and running a campaign about how you do that, not just winning? What do you think, Miss Mariam? I'm asking Miss Mariam here because she's been in the community a long time. Before that, she lived in Chicago. She's always been civically active and has certainly been involved in electoral politics as well as multiple opportunities we've seized upon to make change in our own community. So as a person who's not holding a public office but has a lot of experience holding people in public office accountable, what about this thing about how you run a race versus all out to win?
Well, I think an important factor is, and Carol and I talked about this on more than one occasion, that when you've done work, your work speaks for itself. Your work speaks for itself. Although I've never been in public office, I've been on the front line of many events that stirred the pot, if you would, ruffled the water.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes people were not pleased with what I was doing.
With the ruffling.
With the ruffling. Or, you know, as the kids calling out, calling people out.
Calling it what it is.
Right. Holding people accountable. So, but at the end of the day, if you have a good work ethic,
Yes.
and your deeds have been those that hold people accountable, work for your community, work for people who are not empowered, be a voice for people who are not empowered, then it speaks for itself. If people say negative things about you or distort your deeds
Correct.
to make them appear other than they really were, the record speaks for
the
itself.
record speaks for itself. And again, I want to be so careful because I know I'm walking a fine line around endorsement and that kind of thing. So let me be clear again. This is a nonpartisan show for WBCP radio as well as for the Access Initiative. And the reason we're talking about this today is because we've just come down since last night from an electoral cycle. So what has been the experience of black women in the process of organizing themselves and organizing a community? And again, what does that look like? So Sister Carol is the one in the room today who is now running for a state seat representing a major party. And you were given massive opportunities to sling mud. Am I correct?
You know, the opportunity is always there, right, to say something negative. It's always there. But
And you
the
got
greater opportunity, though, I believe, the greater opportunity is to empower and to enforce in your community the opportunity that you can do something.
and to model what
That's
it
what it
is
was.
we want to have and be in the world. We can't put that off to the end of the election cycle.
No.
You got to be who you are every day, all day.
So I think the Access Initiative, regardless to party, I can move away from party because that's not the focus of this show.
Correct.
The focus of this show is to really empower the community to say, if there are things that we don't believe are the right things for the community, do we have the power to change them?
Correct.
That's the answer for that is yes. We've shown that. The other thing is for black women, sometimes the media images of black women are not positive. And so there's much research on the portrayal of black women in negative lights.
Yes.
What we wanted to do, what Miss Phyllis does, what you do, I call you all Uma, which means
Yes.
mother, community. What you are doing is showing the sophistication and the grace and the intelligence of black women. Now, that doesn't say
You can be graceful and bold and
you
courageous.
you took my thought. You took my thought. Doesn't mean that we are going to be quiet and submissive and passive in dealing with really serious issues that affect our community, our families, and our children. But we have a long history.
Yes, we do.
We have a long history of resilient black women who have come along, and they weren't all passive.
No.
No. They were soldiers and warriors, and they were fighters for justice. And
That's
we
right.
see this long history. And so I stand on the shoulders of those women.
Name a few. Tell me, 'cause
Let's,
Women's History
I was
Month.
going through
I'm-
here going like,
I'm so sorry I put you on the spot.
no way.
But who
Let's talk about
name
that.
Name a few sets of shoulders you feel
You know
you're
what?
standing on.
When I first started running, there were some negative comments that were put out and said, "Oh, she's trying to be like Carol Moseley Braun, and you know about Carol Moseley Braun." I respect
That's right.
Carol Moseley Braun and her willingness
'Cause
to
you know her
step
record.
out, and I know her record, and I know her commitment. See, sometimes you got to look at the heart of an individual. Even if they may not do everything exactly the way we judge it to be correct,
Yes.
doesn't mean that they're not doing everything from their heart the best way they know how. I think that that's really what it's about. So Carol Moseley Braun, I say her name with pride.
Yes.
And I thank her for her service.
That's right.
Barbara Jordan.
Oh, honey.
See, now you got me going. Now,
It's getting hot in here.
these are women who have stood in
Powerful.
political positions.
And name
who
a
are
really petite black woman
petite.
passed away in the spirit of Barbara Jordan. Mariam's over here cheating.
Right. Well, you know.
She says she's unbought and
You know
unbossed.
what? When I first started writing, I went straight to the record. I went to the history. And Shirley Chisholm was
Shirley
on the
Chisholm.
top of the list. Shirley Chisholm's words came resonating from times that I didn't even exist.
That's right.
Her words came back to me and said, I can embody her
Yes,
words
yes.
and
She's
her
still
message.
relevant.
She's still relevant.
And you know why? Because history begs to be resolved.
And we still have so
and
many
we
more.
still got to resolve it. And that's what we're on a mission for. So y'all,
Yes.
stay on the mission with us. We're going to have to take a commercial break so y'all can hear us every week. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Access Live can be heard every Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 3 p.m. on WBCP 1580 AM in Champaign-Urbana. You can learn more about the Access Initiative by visiting their website at www.access-initiative2.org.
And we are back. This is Imani Bazzell, your host for Access Live, a community education and engagement arm of the Access Initiative. And as you know, the Access Initiative is all about the mental health and healing of the African American community in general, and more specifically, reaching out to our youth who are trying to navigate multiple difficult systems along with their families. So what do we mean again? We mean the school system, we mean the mental health and physical health system, we mean the juvenile justice system. Yes, so the Access Initiative is about making that easier. And not only easier, but building a system, a way of doing that, that says we want to be justice informed and trauma informed. And so a lot of what we address when we are trying to get our community organized, I think a lot of the resistance we may experience or what we may see as apathy is really a symptom of historical trauma. Miss Mariam, could you say something about that for a minute? What would cause people who are clearly on fire or drowning not to start pulling out buckets or trying to get to shore? Why would we do that?
Well, I think there's a historical record of people who are not empowered not achieving their goals. And after a while, people start to think, why try?
Yes.
It's not going to work. Those things that are keeping me back are bigger than I can do. So collectively, and then if we want to talk about sort of organized events, historically in our country, there seems to be a cycle.
Yes.
Okay. Post-slavery and during Reconstruction, there are lots of elected officials, African-American elected officials. There were all kinds of schools open to address that, because educating...
all our HBCUs, right?
And educating African-American people was against the law.
Okay.
So, but then there was a cycle. First of all, the government stopped attending to those things.
Yes.
And they left the South.
Yes.
And the things that were discussed in terms of putting in place safeguards because of political power in Congress, and then the president that succeeded Lincoln, that was not on his radar.
Now it got lost somewhere.
It got thrown away. It didn't even get lost.
Right.
It got discarded.
It got placed in the circular file.
Exactly. So we've seen these circles. Then we go and we see the civil rights movement. And if people really know, the civil rights movement actually started in the late 1920s.
Surely.
Organized. It was small. And so and it peaked like in the 60s, and there were laws and there were things that happened, and then again it went out of favor. Okay.
And I think there were so many crushed and traumatized people as a result of MLK's assassination, which was like the last straw, because people were also disenchanted when Malcolm X and other people were assassinated or died. And that was kind of the last straw. Yeah. And
so we see this kind of cyclical thing that happens. So when a large devastating event happens, then it's a kind of collective depression, if you will, since we're talking about mental health.
That's right.
And there's been lots of documentation that discusses sort of like a mental health or a way of thinking that comes out of daily and consistent oppression.
Yes.
And disenfranchisement.
Yeah. So are you referring to what we call PTSD?
Right.
Right. So when people go off to war, we hear that a lot in the news, that they're coming back suffering not just physical trauma, but the emotional trauma, that altogether, when you look at the symptoms, when you have a pattern of symptoms. That's called a syndrome. You usually find these things together. So they call that PTSD, which stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. But we have black psychologists who say what African Americans are suffering from is also PTSD. They would just change the S to say post-traumatic slavery disorder. And that's what I meant when I said history begs to be resolved. And when you say things are cyclical, that's what happens. We keep going around and around until we resolve history. We're going to keep going around and around. But we're here to say in 2014, black women are hot and raring to go, and to stand on the footprints and on the shoulders of other black women who have inspired us in this country, and I would say in Africa and the diaspora. Yes. So what about the young people? Miss Phyllis, you want to say something about that? So where do we see the youth in all of this? We want youth voice. When we think about community campaigns, how do we get youth voice? How do we sustain youth voice? How do we make sure it's authentic, it's what they understand? Not some mess just because somebody threw a microphone in front of me, but good education and engagement that allows young people to be heard and help shape history.
If young people see us being accountable for the things that we do, you teach by example. So when they see us doing the things that we're supposed to do and owning up to the things that we have created, then they too will take ownership for the things that they do and know that, my grandma or my mom says that I have to do this and they're taking nothing less. But we have to do that in order for our kids to understand that we have to stand for what we mean and mean what we stand for.
Absolutely. And that's about ethics.
Yes.
That's about morals. It's about what you might call a code of ethics.
Yes.
And I think that black women in particular do have a code of ethics, that maybe we need a round table, right? A little think tank. And one of the first things we do is maybe spell out what we believe through our experience, through research, to look at the works of black women in the modern day and before. And I am sure that out of that we'll be able to cull an authentic code of ethics that we will all find ourselves leading our decision making and action and setting an example for our young people, for our men, and for our allies across race and class and gender.
Yes.
Isn't that exciting?
That's exciting.
Would you
and it's
help
worth
if we
it.
decide to do that?
I'll be on the front floor.
All
with you.
right. Okay, so Miss Coordinator of Public Engagement. So this whole question of, is it possible? Could we do it? Right? So here, let's just be clear. The 103rd District is not predominantly African American, not necessarily, well, it's probably a majority urban, but there's still, rural 103rd District. So, Carol, for you to have carried the day yesterday, many people wanted it to be true, but couldn't believe it could happen, because we know people oftentimes vote based on their race and class and gender, which leaves black working class women, somewhere on the bottom of the heap. So tell me, what do you think happened? And you too, I'd like you to jump in because I know you've been following this cycle. What is it? How'd that happen? You were being outspent 100 to 1. Every time I came home, I saw big, beautiful, full-size color postcards from your opponent. How could they have spent all that money? How could it have been a young, entitled, well-educated white male who you were running against? How in the world did you pull this off? But sorry, somebody's calling. Maybe they'll ask you.
They'll answer that question for me.
Yes, there we go. Hello, caller.
Hello, Sister Imani. This is Nicole Cobb calling.
Hello, honey girl. Because you know what running a campaign is about, don't you?
Huh?
You know what running a campaign is about.
Well, I was just calling because I've been so excited. I have been posting everywhere about Carol's victory. I've had tears in my eyes all day. And I just wanted to just greet you and thank you for doing this show.
So, Nicole, while we've got you for a minute, say something about, because what we want to make clear is we're not just talking about leadership to win an elected office. We're talking about leadership around making transformational change for our community and the broader society. And I know that that's something you've dedicated your life to, especially around the question of gun violence, correct?
That's absolutely true. And
So that's been your campaign.
absolutely. And I think just being so excited about the opportunity to work with you and Carol and others who have been so supportive and committed to this issue as well. And I was just calling to find out if the panel could talk a bit about how we support her moving forward, because we know that the reputation of our state leaders is at an all-time low.
It is.
And that people are so fed up with state and national leadership. So how can we both secure her space but support her in what she has to do?
Excellent question. And I think that feeds right into what Sister Carol was about to respond to anyway. So, honey, not only in the answer, not only are we going to talk about what it means to support Sister Carol, but we've got to also talk about what it means to support Miss Mariam, what it means to support you as you're trying to help rid our communities of gun violence. Those are all campaigns. Those are all opportunities for black women to stand up, take a stand.
I love the discussion you were having about a round table.
Yes. Oh, honey, I know you're going to be there. So we're going to let everybody answer your question and stay safe and peaceful.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I do want you to go to how in the world did all this money get spent against you? Did all the dirty politics happen against you? And most of the people who voted probably weren't working class or poor, and certainly weren't majority black. You cut through a lot of demographics and stole the night. How could that have happened?
I think what you started the show with is really the answer. People are interested in better communities. I think they are. I think regardless to where they come from, whatever their experience or education may have been, I think the message was very clear. We are no longer interested in the cookie cutter, box cut out, fully paid for representative that you decide we should have, that the power structure will give you. People wanted a regular person. I'm a bike riding down to Meadowbrook sister growing some tomatoes in the backyard.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
so
right. And you don't keep the flowers right in the front yard. We call you out and you straighten it up. That's real regular.
It's just regular people. But you know what we realize though is public policy has to include the rest of us. And I think other people agree with me.
Yes.
That when we say we want healthy, safe communities, what Dr. Nicole Anderson Cobb has been doing since I met her.
Super heroine.
You know, people want safe, we all want safe communities everywhere we live.
That's right.
And we agree about that.
The farmer can vote for you.
That's why they can.
That's right.
Because they agree with that too.
That's right. That's how professors who
Can
make
vote for
over
me.
$200K a year, who live quite comfortably,
Yes.
would still vote for you.
Yes.
Yes.
Because they agree with what I agree with. The premise is that we should all have opportunity. We should all have jobs. We should all have access to education. And if we are lacking any of those things, then it is our duty to come together to fix it. And I think that's the bottom line.
So the process, the way you went about campaigning, what you stood for, what you chose to do and what not to do, paid off in the end.
In the end,
Yeah.
it was these wonderful women sitting in this studio, including yourself. It's the people on the phone, like Dr. Nicole Anderson Cobb. It's the brother that was tatted up.
Okay.
You hear me? That walked into Douglas and said, "I got you." It's the people, some unemployed,
Yes.
some employed at higher levels than others.
Absolutely.
But we all agreed that it was time for new leadership
Yes.
in Central Illinois.
Yes, because
And-
we know that we're building a web or sewing together a quilt, and it's got to be big enough for all of us. And so
It has to
that's
be.
what we want to make clear through the work of the Access Initiative, that our young people who are in trouble, it is possible to have a new day.
And it's
The
not, you
parents
can't
who are
have a healthy
struggling,
community
you
if the
cannot.
families are struggling.
You cannot.
You just
So
can't
this
have
is
it.
all about that.
Yes.
And how we do it, not just where we end up,
Right.
but how we get there.
So I
Is
want to. I
about
do
our
want to talk
mental
about the
health
how
and healing.
after your
Okay,
caller.
so we're going to take another break for the cause, because we want the electricity working when we show back up next week.
We do.
So don't change your station, don't walk away. We'll be right back.
The Access Initiative mission is to build a trauma and justice informed system of care designed to create a healed community that works to ensure that youth and their families are resilient, resourceful, responsible, and restored.
And we are back. This is Imani Bazzell, your host for Access Live, a community education and engagement initiative of the Access Initiative. And that's what we're talking about today, community engagement, or what some people call public engagement. So in the studio this afternoon, we have Miss Phyllis Clark, who is the city clerk for the city of Urbana and also serves as board staff for Cunningham Township. We also have with us Sister Mariam Al-Rahim, whom many of you know as being a deeply involved and committed community member who brings leadership to SisterNet through our public engagement efforts. And then we also have Sister Carol, Alderwoman Carol Ammons. She serves on the City of Urbana City Council. She is a former county board member, is active in many civically engaged efforts, and somehow a miracle occurred last night that the rich and powerful got stomped. That somehow a black working class woman would win over whom people would believe would surely win. And so part of what we're talking about today is what diversity really looks like. But sorry, I think we have a call.
All right.
Hello, caller.
Hey there.
Hey there.
I know this is a show for the ladies, so I'll keep my comments.
No, Mr. Man. We want the brothers to call in because we want to demonstrate that brothers are up for it.
Well, there's several things running through my mind today, but just really want to, thank Carol for having the courage to run. And I think, she's grown up tremendously in the last few months. But I think it was exhibited so well last night as I was watching the news coverage, and the reporter tried to get her to go in a negative, dirty place about the campaign and some things that had been done to her file. And she just chose to stay positive and stay above all of that. And I just think it showed so much class. We still always know we have to be twice as good
That's right.
and twice better to have success in our world today. But I just think Carol, showing the courage to run and performing magnificently just wanted to send my congratulations out and thank her and thank all of you for a great show. And so that's all I want.
So listen, don't hang up. For those of you who don't know, this is Mr. Tracy Parsons, who is actually the director of the Access Initiative, the sponsor of this radio show that will also be seen on cable television. UPTV Channel 6 is in the house. Tracy, how does what we're talking about this afternoon translate to the work of the Access Initiative?
Well, it does a number of different ways. So, for example, earlier today I spoke over at Ready School, and for me to be able to talk to some of those young sisters that was in the group I was talking with about Carol, they didn't know who she was, wasn't aware that she had just been, won her campaign. And so from an access place, when we're looking at and talking about young people that are dealing with mental health issues, mental health challenges, sometimes they've made wrong decisions or had negative things happen in their life. What I talk to them about is no matter what the obstacles are, they can overcome them and they can move forward. And so Carol just exhibits that so well. And so it gave me a great message for today in a conversation with some young folks.
So it was so relevant the very next day. So Tracy, I know you want to go, but one more thing. When you think about the young people and their lived experience who you spent time with today, who many people already consider throwaway people, could you imagine those young people and young people like them getting involved in some kind of campaign, be it electoral politics or not, but could you see them growing into being people who stand up to help transform their community?
Well, I challenged them today to told them that they actually have that responsibility. And so we all have leadership in us. Our young people don't know that and don't believe that about themselves. They've lost so much self-confidence. So I told them they all were leaders. They all were valuable. They all were smart. They all were beautiful young folks.
And we need them.
How do we get it out of them?
Yeah.
And we've got to help provide the opportunity to do so. We've got to bring young folks into what we're doing.
That's right.
Carol talked about the young folks that were helping with the campaign and holding signs. Yesterday I saw a brother out here on the corner by Brookings with a Carol Emmett sign. And so young folks have to understand they have to be part of the process.
Yes.
Taught how to be part of the process. So we have that responsibility to bring them in. So as we go forward over the next few months to the next phase of the campaign, we've got to bring young folks along every step of the way so that they understand how the participatory process makes a difference.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, my brother. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Tracy.
And let us embrace.
All right.
Let's embrace these young people. Thank you, kind sir.
Right.
So, Carol, before we go back to you, we did just get a fax in from the Erica Herald for U.S. Congress campaign. And we know many of our listening audience would have liked to have seen Erica win the primary campaign she was involved in. But out of respect, she sent it here, and let me just share with our listening audience what she says. So March 19th for immediate release, Erica Herald's statement on the election results. She said, "I was honored to have earned 41% of the vote and will forever be humbled by the incredible volunteers and supporters who worked tirelessly and passionately on behalf of the campaign. I called Representative Davis last night to congratulate him on his victory and to wish him well in the upcoming general election." And I think people in our listening audience are grateful to hear that, because here she is speaking out of grace.
You know, she and I ended up in the same line. She was one person ahead of me the day we froze to death to file our petitions.
That's funny.
And that was just.
So we stick together,
Yeah.
huh? Literally, how y'all was stuck together.
She heard my name. The gentleman was talking to me, and she turned around and she said, "Oh, we haven't met." And she introduced herself. That was my first time actually meeting her because I hadn't met her before.
Okay, and we'll give a quick shout out to her mom.
So, yes.
Who many of us know. Donna Tannert Harrell,
yes,
who heads the counseling department at Parkland College, and has a social work background. So many people our age and older know Erica through her mom.
She did a good job running her campaign.
Yes, she did.
And it's not easy.
No, it's not.
It is not easy to put yourself out in the forefront like that, and I wish her the best. I'm sure she won't give up. She'll be doing some other things.
No, she's going to do this.
I'm sure she'll do some other things.
It's clear to me she's had a life plan,
yeah.
Probably since she was knee-high, too. That's what I think. But anyway, Sister Carol, our young people, engaged.
Yes. I had an opportunity to speak at the Urbana Adult Ed the day before the election. And it was actually a few days before, actually, to be honest. It was somewhat controversy for me to come and speak. I had been invited to speak during Black History Month, which I always go and speak every single year. I'm always honored to speak to the group. Well, this time it was different. And some people weren't happy that I was coming to speak, and they thought it was in some way unfair. And so I said, well, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I don't have to speak about my campaign.
Right.
So they said, just talk about voting. I said, well, that's a subject I love to talk about.
No problem.
I spoke for 50 minutes to a room full of young adults.
And kept their attention.
And I can tell you for sure that they were motivated and inspired.
Lovely.
A couple of them decided to come to my office. And they just came and dropped in because they had been registered to vote through Adult Ed. So they came to show me their I voted sticker. And I said, you know what? If you're interested, we are interested in you working with us.
Yes.
Because I think you need to learn how to do this.
Right. That's what we heard.
That's what this is about.
Tracy saying, we want to get young people involved.
Yes.
So they can develop the leadership skills.
They have
move
to.
Our code of ethics and values forward.
And we want them to accept responsibility.
That's correct.
The condition you're in is because you haven't accepted responsibility.
And now that's all
and
about
now
to change.
That's about to change. And you can change it. So that's the exciting part.
And they picked that up.
And they picked it up.
I want to ask Miss Mariam to step up for a bit. Mariam, you have dedicated much of your adult life to working with families, and African American families in particular. Our topic today, Black women as leaders in the home and in the public, and the mental health and healing of the African American community. What do you want to say about your lived experience working and supporting local African American families, struggling to be united and to raise successful young people, what the adults need, what the young people need? We know the bad news. What's the good news?
Well, the good news is I have never met a parent who did not want success for their families and their children. Not one. Regardless of their own personal obstacles, their own personal issues, they always wanted success for their children. Not just personal success, but they wanted their children to be good and whole citizens. They wanted their families to be sound and united. And regardless of the obstacles, they really worked hard to achieve those goals. Not always successfully,
Correct.
but that was always the foundation in which they were aspiring to have successful children, whole successful families, the idea that I can overcome this. Many times the issue was the lack of time.
Time and probably
Right,
resources.
and resources.
Right?
But I mean organized structures. If you have an issue that's your family has faced for 10 years, you can't resolve it in 12 to 18 months.
You certainly cannot. And if that's the standard that's put before us, because of course right now we've run into DCFS, we know that's what we're talking about. If your family has had generational problems, you actually don't fix them in 12 to 18 months. But does that then mean you can't have your kids?
And so we've always, you know, one of the things that was primary for me when I worked with families is that the time is ticking. Let's be very focused about what we need to do here. And that's always my message.
That's right. And I know that about you. And I know we only got a couple minutes, but I want to tell this about Miss Mariam, is that when she would do contractual work for DCFS, because we know people in our community are very leery of DCFS, of the state, don't trust, feel put upon. And so she would go to these families and say, listen, I done tricked these people into paying me to help you get whatever it is you want. Here's the amount of time we got to make it happen. Let's make it happen. And maybe just hearing it put that way, to see that you were there to represent them, not the state, completely flips the problem on its head, and I think makes people realize, oh, I have an actual paid advocate on my side. And you've seen that make a difference.
Make a difference. And actually what I would say was...
Okay, I didn't get it right.
I work for you.
Correct, you did.
You have hired me.
Yes.
You don't have the resources to pay
That's
me,
right.
but I am working for you and your family.
Yes, you did.
And because you're in the system, there's a component that says you should have representation.
That's right.
And
There's
so
some
I'm that
hoops you
person,
gotta jump
right?
through.
But I work for you, and families were able to see that and believe it.
Yes.
And believe it.
Because
and we
of who
worked
the
together.
messenger was.
Right, and we worked
On
together.
to the next messenger. Sister Phyllis, your closing thoughts. Understand, this is just installment number 1.
Yes,
We're going to do this. What do you want to leave with our listening audience just for this afternoon?
Be strong in your passion to move forward in the things that you want to achieve. Your goals are always set, and you can achieve them if you reach up high and look down low.
Ooh, high and low. Sister Carol, parting thoughts.
I just want to thank you. I thank you for being my big sister.
Boom.
I thank you for that. And all of these wonderful mothers in this community across university.
Bless the mothers.
Across university, regardless to where they may have come from.
Yep.
They have embraced me as a daughter, as a sister, as a member of the family, and I appreciate and love them. Thank you.
Well, we just having a love fest in here today, but the clock is ticking, so we're going to have to go. Remember, y'all, hold hands, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Access Live. Access Initiative is a trauma and justice-informed system of care. We're glad that you joined us today. Please join us every Wednesday at 2:00 p.m. for Access Live. Thank you and be well.